Poštovani gledalci, dobrodošli u još jedno izdanje emisije Granice Istoka. Ja sam Harun Karčić. Kina je usred sveobuhvatne brodogradnje kakvu svijet dosad nije vidio. Predsjednik Xi Jinping je 2015. godine pokrenuo projekt pretvaranja Narodno-oslobodilačke vojske u borbenu silu svjetskih razmjera, koja će biti ravnopravna američkoj vojsci. Naredio je investicije u brodogradilišta i tehnologiju. Borbena snaga kineske mornarice utrostručena je u samo 20 godina. Iako ima najveću svjetsku ratnu mornaricu, Kina velikom brzinom gradi moderne brodove, podmornice, nosače aviona, borbene avione, amfibijska plovila i podmornice sa balističkim nuklearnim raketama. Pod vlašću predsjednika Xi Jinpinga, Kina je postala diplomatski asertivnija i pokazala povećanu spremnost da svoje teritorijalne pretenzije potkrijepi demonstracijama vojne moći. Susjedne zemlje i Sjedinjene Američke Države pažljivo posmatraju situaciju. Detaljnije o američko-kineskim odnosima, kineskoj mornarici i tenzijama u jugoistočnoj Aziji pojašnjava nam Craig Hooper, direktor firme Themistocles Advisory Group. Craig, hello and welcome to the Al Jazeera channel, and thank you so much for taking time to speak to us. Now, recent months have witnessed a series of provocative and dangerous encounters involving Chinese naval and air forces. Is Washington's top concern a major conflict in Asia where China has been increasingly aggressive and confidently belligerent in recent years?
Well, I would say it's one of many different concerns. I don't think it's the primary concern, but it's certainly a worry, particularly as China's behavior continues to depart from accepted norms of behavior.
Mm-hmm. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, right now we have a fight in Ukraine. We have there's a dispute in the Middle East, and then we have a sort of a looming, more long-term threat in the Pacific. And I think when you combine China's maritime growth, they have the largest navy in terms of numbers in the world, with their behavior, where they're treating naval vessels of all nations with disdain and unsafely. It's a concern.
Right. I mean, but in light of China's burgeoning military navy capabilities, coupled with its assertive actions in the South China Sea, what specific strategic objectives does China seek to achieve in that part of the world, and how does it plan to leverage its naval power to further these ambitions?
Well, certainly, it's a great mystery for all of us as to what China's aims are. at a minimum, China's aims in the South China Sea are to claim and impose control over that area of the ocean. What their longer term goals are, we don't know. It could be that China's taking a very long range view and looking towards Antarctica and going, "Hey, this is great. Let's set up a nice, safe passage here." It could be that China wants to impose control over the South China Sea to have a safe bastion for its nuclear submarines that they'll be building in the future. We just don't know, and China hasn't really been willing to discuss it other than saying it's mine. And that, I think, is the concern for all of us, is what are China's goals? In light of that, our only other option is to try and evaluate, watch what China is doing, and through that try to gain some type of understanding, and to try and build up a deterrence force, as it were, a force that can that is capable and large enough to respond to China's growing navy and growing maritime aspirations.
Now, there was an article I came across recently in the National Interest written by Brent Sadler, who you might be familiar with. He states that the U.S. Navy operates 291 warships, far lower than their 2016 goal of 355. And China's Navy has been expanding very rapidly in recent years. They now have a larger naval force than the U.S. So what exactly is wrong with the U.S. Navy? Why is it lagging behind?
Well, now I think the U.S. Navy is second to none. Why is it lagging behind? Well, we haven't faced a threat at sea for decades. We've been operating mainly in the Persian Gulf, which is a very small body of water where our concentration has been more upon launching airstrikes into Afghanistan than pretty much anything else. So a lot of the strategic justifications and understanding of the maritime have sort of eroded over time. So we've been caught a little bit flat-footed by China's expansion. Now, with that said, China, yes, it has the largest navy. It has a 370 ship navy with about 140 major combatants. If you look, we always look at this in sort of a head-to-head fashion. We're always comparing the United States versus the other guy. And I would say that that's not the right way to look at it. The way to look at it is to look at naval force in aggregate. In the Pacific, you've got the U.S. Navy with our 291 ships. You also have Japan and Korea, very strong navies. They have 150 ships apiece that are enormously capable. So and there's no way you can get into a battle with the U.S. without bringing one or both of those team players in with us. So if you look at a more sophisticated alliance-based mesh in the Pacific, then the balance of power looks a little more reasonable.
Now, Admiral Lisa Franchetti was recently sworn in as the 33rd Chief of Naval Operations. I was wondering what will be the most pressing issues that you'll have to deal with?
Oh, she needs to work on getting a strategy out. This is one of the reasons why the U.S. Navy has been kind of caught flat-footed with China's rise. The United States has not developed a comprehensive maritime strategy for decades, really. We're flying blind, and we don't really know. Industry partners don't really know what to build. We don't really know where to focus investments in the maritime, whether we need to build shipyards or not. It's just, we sort of go on sort of 4-year courses of action that change radically from one president to the next. We need to bear down, develop a bipartisan strategy for how we're going to approach the maritime, given the threats that we face and see today in the Pacific.
Right. And finally, I mean, there are some, U.S. allies and regional partners in Southeast Asia that seem to prefer to have, cordial relations with both the U.S. And China, such as the Philippines, right? Or even Malaysia to a certain extent. And they seem to be unwilling to distance themselves completely from Beijing because of long-standing and deeply, interdependent economic and trade relations. So can the U.S. replace China as a major trading partner to these countries? Or, should the U.S. approach a different recalibrated strategy towards these Southeast Asian allies and partners?
Well, maritime diplomacy is always challenging, right? It's always, there's always shades of gray. So and America sometimes has trouble with that. I think with the Pacific, we have largely retreated from our diplomatic duties. We've closed embassies. We generally focused elsewhere, and China has largely filled that vacuum. We're returning to that area of the world, and I think as more and more countries experience the exciting challenges of dealing with China, and come to a realization that they may not want a collaborative relationship, but more of a ruler and ruled relationship, that you see nations reconsidering their choices and their pathways, like the Philippines. The Philippines went, in the 90s, were very anti-US, and they wanted the US out of the area and out of the region. Well, they've made relationships with, they've worked with on a relationship with China, and have been rebuffed or taken advantage of at every turn. And they're realizing that the US is a better, far more fair partner. And so you're seeing collaborations now with the Philippines, where we're doing joint patrols with them in the South China Sea. We're working with them, Coast Guard to Coast Guard. We're developing, returning to bases in the Philippines. And the relationship is much more positive. So I think that the dalliance with China, or the balancing with China, you have to do it. Yes, you do. They are your neighbor. They're going to we got to try to find some way to get along. But I think it's, in terms of balancing, you have to weigh the positives and the negatives. And I think the positives come down to the U.S. At the end of the day.
Right. Craig, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much once again for speaking to us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Kina proteklih godina osvaja brojna tržišta iz odbrambenog sektora i pronalazi nove klijente širom Afrike, Latinske Amerike i Azije. Pogledajmo detaljnije koliko je snažna kineska vojna industrija. Idemo do Ankare gdje se nalazi Tayfun Ozbek, bivši oficir turske mornarice i vojno-sigurnosni analitičar. Mr. Tayfun, hello and welcome to the Al Jazeera Balkans channel, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us now. Let me start by asking you, as somebody who has served in the Turkish Navy for many, many years, what are the key components of Turkey's naval forces, and how have they evolved over the years to meet modern challenges?
Hello, Harun. Thanks for the invitation. It's my pleasure. Turkish Navy is a conventional and a modern naval force. The structure of the Turkish Navy is capable to meet all the fields of naval warfare, including above-water warfare, anti-submarine warfare, amphibious warfare, and etc. It can also capable to assume peacetime operations. The key components of the naval forces, just like every conventional and modern navies, are its combatants, naval aviation assets, and of course, logistic vessels. But if we are talking about the key components, of course, we have to mention Turkish Navy's new jewel, TCG Anadolu in this case. TCG Anadolu, Turkish Navy's flagship, recently entered service for the Turkish Navy, and it's expected to enhance the overseas operation capabilities of the Navy, and it will increase the presence of the Navy in the critical regions all around the world. In the last 2 decades, Turkey has invested in developing its own naval capabilities, including designing and building indigenous warships and, of course, unmanned systems. Milgem project, Milgem stands for Milli Gemi in Turkish. It means national ship project, stands as the most critical project in this trend. Turkish defense industry has constructed 4 Ada-class new generation corvettes and currently constructing 4 indigenous frigates. It's called I-class frigates, and the first ship of the frigate is expected to enter service within this year, and the remaining ships will be commissioned in 3 years. And Turkish Navy's first air-independent propulsion-capable race-class submarine, the international call sign is Type 214 class submarine, will be commissioned this year. And these submarines are constructed in Turkey under German TKMS company license. And under this project, totally 6 submarines will be delivered to the Turkish Navy in the following years. And this project will pave the way to develop Turkey's national submarine called Milden, which is projected to enter service in the middle of 2030s.
Now you mentioned that the Turkey's first aircraft carrier, TSG Anadolu. The initial idea when this aircraft carrier began to be designed and constructed was for F-35s to be able to be launched off the aircraft. However, in the meantime, because of souring relations with the U.S., Turkey was excluded in a way from the program. Now there's a lot of talk about Bayraktar TB3s being able to be launched from the aircraft carrier. Could you provide us with more insights on this topic?
Okay. As a matter of fact, TCG Anadolu is not an aircraft carrier. It's an LHD, landing helicopter dog, with air operation capabilities. The initial, as you mentioned, the initial intention was to deploy F-35B fighter jets on board the carrier. But after the recent developments, the relations between the United States and Turkey, the partnership was broken. So Turkish defense industry has developed a new solution because Turkish defense industry is very good in unmanned systems. So we are planning to deploy unmanned aerial vehicles on board TCG Anadolu. It will be the first drone will be TB3 Bayraktar, is currently being developed by Baykar company. And it's an evolved version, the famous TB2 Bayraktar drones. It has foldable wings to be housed in the hangars of TCG Anadolu, and it has more endurance, and it can carry more weapons, of course, and it will have a range around 1,000 nautical miles, and will be used for ISR missions and small strike operations. And another project is Kızıl Elma. It's unmanned fighter jet project, and it will be deployed on TCG Anadolu after being operational. And TV3 is currently under trials, and it's to this date it's conducted fifth flight test, and we expect TV3s to be placed on board TCG Anadolu in the next year. So it's also mentioned as a drone carrier ship, but I believe that it's not only a drone carrier ship, it's one of its capabilities. To define TCG Anadolu as a drone carrier is underestimating its capabilities, because it will boost power projection capabilities of the Turkish Navy in the following years.
Right. I mean, we know that Turkey has a very long Black Sea coast and an even longer Mediterranean coast. I was wondering, how does Turkey strategically position its naval assets in the Mediterranean and Black Sea regions, and what geopolitical factors influence its maritime presence? And I was wondering if you could also elaborate on NATO's military presence in the Black Sea, and I believe they often come in close contact with Russian ships in the same sea.
Well, Turkey strategically positions its naval assets in the Mediterranean and Black Sea to protect its maritime interests, secure critical choke points, to respond to regional conflicts, and of course uphold its national security. Turkey also, as all we know, controls the critical choke points in the Mediterranean, such as Istanbul and Çanakkale Straits, and these waterways connect the Mediterranean through the Aegean Sea and to the Black Sea, and are of vital importance for both regional and global maritime trade. The discovery of significant energy sources in the Eastern Mediterranean has led to increased competition among regional states for control of this source, of course. Turkey, as the country that has the longest coast in the East Med, aims to protect its interest in this context and deploys a significant force in the region. The Black Sea has historically been a region of strategic importance for Turkey, of course. The Montreux Convention, which was signed in 1963, regulates naval passage through the straits and sets limit on the presence of foreign warships in the Black Sea, affecting Turkey's maritime strategy. The Russo-Ukrainian War showed the sensitivity of the region and proved the mediator role of Turkey. As a result, Turkish Navy needs to be strong in the Black Sea for the stability. While talking about the Black Sea, it was to mention Turkish Navy chief's recent statements about the Black Sea security, because Turkey's commander of the naval forces has expressed a preference for Turkey to secure the Black Sea independently without the presence of the US or NATO. This stance is in response to the geopolitical struggles in the region, which have been intensified by the incidents like the Georgia-Russia conflict in 2008 and the occupation of Crimea in 2014 and the ongoing Ukrainian-Russian war, which began last year. Turkey's position is influenced by its desire to avoid escalating tensions in the Black Sea and to maintain its sovereignty over the straits under Montreux Convention. To summarize, Turkey wants Black Sea as a sea of peace, of course.
Now, finally, how has Turkey's naval doctrine adapted to address emerging threats, and what technological advancements have been integrated into its naval fleet to sort of, enhance its operational capabilities?
Well, Turkey's naval doctrine has undergone significant adaptations to address emerging threats and enhance operational capabilities in line with its strategical geopolitical position and evolving dynamics. I think that I can answer this question in two parts. The first one is technological advancements and the adaptation to geopolitical realities. And while talking about the technological advancements, as I told you in the beginning, we have to mention TCG Anadolu in this case. It's Turkish Navy's largest vessel and capable of deploying heavy helicopters, tens of drones, and light attack aircraft. This ship can carry a battalion-sized unit, 8 utility helicopters, and 150 vehicles, including main battle tanks. TCG Anadolu is expected to play a crucial role in both military and humanitarian operations globally. And of course, we have to focus on unmanned systems, not only the unmanned aerial vehicles, but also the surface drones and underwater surveillance drones. Turkey has matured projects in this field as well. And these innovations are expected to cover a range of naval missions, including anti-surface warfare, underwater surveillance, and mine detection.
Right, Mr. Tayfun, it was such a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much once again for your time.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for your invitation.
Decenijama se političko i vojno vođstvo Tajvana oslanjalo na vjerovanje da je invazija na otok previše teška i rizična za Peking. Ali sada Kina ima najveću mornaricu na svijetu i mnogo snažnije zrakoplovstvo. Pod snažnim pritiskom Washingtona, Tajpej se prebacuje na strategiju tvrđava Tajvan, koja bi znatno otežala Kini osvajanje otoka. Poštovani gledalci, bilo je to sve u ovom izdanju emisije Granice Istoka. Ako ste propustili bilo koji dio, emisiju možete pregledati na našoj web stranici balkans.aljazeera.net. Hvala na pažnji.